Chillicothe City Council. Today is Monday, April 27th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ames.
Here.
Corcoran.
Here.
Florima. Here. Gray.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Hatcher.
Here.
Kroll.
Here.
Patton.
Here.
Trutchell.
Here.
Will you please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members have the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any comments, or do we have a motion to approve as presented? Motion made by Mrs. Neal, second. Second by Mr. Florina. Roll call.
Ames.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florima.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Hatcher.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
And the minutes will stand as presented. That brings us to reports of committees. Mrs. Patrick.
Thank you. Utilities Committee has two items on tonight's agenda. The first one is item number 3, and it's the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $18,500 for postage in the sewer department. And the second one is item number 4, and it's the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $27,133.84 to the utility department for services rendered on behalf of the transit department. Both of those will go all 3 reads. And I would like to announce there will be a Utilities Committee meeting Wednesday, the 29th at 4 o'clock. And at this point, it'll be in council chambers. I will send out a notice when I get the location down. But it's to go over all outstanding assignments, and we just got another one. And on behalf of the Transit Committee, I would just ask the mayor if there's any updates to the email I sent you on April 16th about the status of the 4 transit items.
I investigated the conditions of these 4 issues that were involved in the transaction with Hauser. None of them were in perfect working condition. As a matter of fact, they were sent over last fall to the Armory to be sold at auction, and have all been replaced with new.
Okay. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, President Elnorio. The Human Resources Committee has 3 items on tonight's agenda. Agenda number 1, which is the third reading of the ordinance to establish rates of pay and other economic benefits. Is this time to move to strike? Mr. Foxen? I would like to entertain a motion to strike item number 1 from the legislation agenda.
Is there a second? Mrs. Ames. Roll call on the motion.
Ames.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florima.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Hatcher.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
And item number 1 will be struck from tonight's agenda.
Thank you. In its place, excuse me, we have items numbers 8 and 9. Number 8 being the first reading on the ordinance to establish rates of pay and other economic benefits for non-classified employees and the classified but management level employees of the city. And number 9, first reading of an ordinance to establish rates of pay and other economic benefits for all appointed department head positions within the city effective throughout 2015. At the appropriate time, I will ask to waive the 3-read rule for both of these items this evening to be able to get this finally passed. We had a review session a week ago, Monday, to discuss this particular piece of legislation, and it was the general feeling of the body that we separate out the department heads from the other employees to be able to address them, holding the department heads pretty well at the same position we had for 2014, and being able to move ahead with the non-classified employees and the classified management level employees to have a establishing rates of pay for that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Trudgeon.
Thank you, Mrs. Leonardo. The Finance Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. It's item 2. It's the third reading to authorize the city auditor to enter into a 3-year purchase agreement and professional services contract with Software Solution Incorporated for the purchase of new software at the cost of $123,573. Also, I'd like to call our first budget meeting at a review session next Monday, May 4th at 6:30. It's the end of the first quarter, and I believe it's time that we approach the budget for 2016.
Do you have a location?
This is,
Okay.
thank you, Secretary Farnsworth.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes, the Park and Recreation has 2 items this evening. The first one is to appropriate $118,850 for the operation of the Donald Smith Memorial Pool for the 2015 season. And at the appropriate time, we would like to waive the 3-read rule so that they are able to get up and open and doing business hopefully by June 1st. It looks like it is going to happen on June 1st. And also to item number 8, well, no, not 8. Is this, would the item numbers change now since it just stays the same? Okay. 7, establish the salary schedule for part-time seasonal employees of the Recreation Swimming Pool Department of the City of Chillicothe, and I think enclosed you have the rate, wage, range. That's it. And in there for everyone to see. And we would also like to, at the appropriate time, waive the 3-read rule so we can get personnel hired and get to business.
Okay. Other reports from the committee. Mrs. Ames.
Thank you, Mrs. Elmore. Development has one item on the agenda tonight, number 5, a second reading to approve the replacement pages to the Chillicothe codified ordinances. I have to tell you what happened. I always go through my agenda and I look at the corner of the paper for the different ordinances, and when they have development, I highlight it. Well, I got a call from the law director's office asking why I hadn't addressed this issue, and I said, well, it's not my issue. So then I called Bath City Services, and she said, it's not my assignment. So then I went to the law directors, and they said, it is your assignment. But what happened was, at the corner of the paper, they put City Services, so when I was going through highlighting, I didn't highlight that because it didn't say development. So, it's my mistake. It should have been addressed last meeting. We need to get these pages in the ordinances and get the money sent to Walter Drain, because some of the ordinances that need updated refer to police department and so forth, and they need those in place. So at the appropriate time, I'm gonna ask the 3-read rule be waived tonight so we can get this passed. Thank you.
Mr. Paul.
Safety Services doesn't have any items on the agenda officially, but under committed legislation, I want to move to strike the item. It's no longer necessary. Safety Service Ordinance accepting 1,204 is back in April.
Do we need to approve on that motion? We need a second motion. So seconded by Ms. Gray. And we'll need a roll call on the motion.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
So that item will be removed from committed legislation. Yes, Mrs. Neal.
City Services has no items on tonight's agenda, but I'd like to speak a few minutes about the recurring issue of the equipment and the equipment that has gone to Hauser and Sons. Today I received an invoice from Mr. Hauser's company for $2,782.70. That was for labor to come and get the equipment, to do some reconditioning, to do some power washing. At this point, I want to say that there have been serious mistakes made with this equipment. And my purpose is not to blame or point fingers, but to find how to correct this problem. And what I am requesting at this point, before we compound the problem and write Mr. Hauser a check for $27.82, is that we request an opinion from the Ohio Attorney General. And I think it's entirely appropriate that we do that we seek their guidance on this, that we fess up to our mistakes and see how they recommend that we handle this. I think that Mr. Hauser is probably due some money. I don't know that. I think that this whole situation is such a mess that I have to say I really don't know what the appropriate way to proceed is. And I don't really think anybody else does. So I think that we're at the point to be open and honest and to get a legal opinion from the Ohio Attorney General. I'd like to see us proceed with that this week, requesting that opinion. We can even do it online, but I think that's the point we are with this issue. So I'm asking that the mayor's office request a formal opinion from the Ohio Attorney General's office.
Can I respond to that? I have a request into the law director's office for a resolution to this issue. Certainly there were mistakes made, and I agree the best way to do is to take care of this correctly, make this a learning experience, and move forward. I think that her opportunity to answer that request before we go over her head and go to the Attorney General's office is certainly within order here. If that's her determination, if she cannot give us a legal opinion as to the best way to resolve this, I've asked her to look forward for that and find that answer from someplace else. So I would just prefer to let that run its course and leave it up to our legal representative for the city to decide the best course of action.
Can I respond? I, at this point, don't think that's acceptable. Our law director has already given us an opinion. She gave an opinion, I have it here someplace, it was dated March 30th. She gave her opinion what the proper thing to do was, and we did not follow her recommendations.
And my request to her is how do we handle it going forward?
I really think that we need to move beyond that.
She's legal counsel for the city.
She's given her legal opinion, and I don't know that, how can she determine what, I mean, I think we need to be transparent with taxpayers. I think that Mr. Hauser is probably going to need to be made whole. I don't think this is something we've encountered before. I've read the Ohio Revised Code. I don't think it gives clear direction. I think that anything that we do from this point on is a guess, and I don't think it would hurt us at this point to ask for help.
That's in essence what I've asked her to do. If she can't answer the question, find somebody. If that's the Ohio Attorney General, I have no problem. Well, we need to bring some resolution to this.
You don't give legal opinion.
They don't give legal opinion.
Ohio Attorney General doesn't give legal opinion.
Not to local
They do.
government. Not to local government.
Yes, they do. I've already checked.
They give opinions only to boards and commissions that are state related, not to local. I called as well.
It's on their website that
But
municipalities.
I talked to someone in the office about another issue, not this one, another issue, and they said that they will talk to you, but they will not give legal opinions. Now, this is not right now today, but this is within the last 6 months. So maybe they've changed their policy. Their policy used to be not to give legal opinion.
Not for local government, only for boards and commissions as it relates to a local government issue. And that's the same response that I received when I called them.
Top of their website, legal opinions, click municipalities, I mean, it's on there. If they don't, then they can tell us
No,
that.
I agree.
But I just think we need to seek help at this point. And if they say no, well, what have we lost? We've asked.
Since this is new territory, how would you want to proceed?
I'd like for the mayor's office to follow the guidelines for requesting an Ohio Attorney General opinion.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
Excuse me, if this is gonna be a resolution by council, it has to be in writing. It can't just be a motion on the floor of council and a verbal, oral resolution.
Can I make a
To
verbal
the mayor?
request?
Would you make a verbal request?
You've already made your verbal request. Are you wanting all of council to back that up?
Not necessarily.
Well, then there's no need for a resolution. The mayor is a separately elected city official. And protocol under rules of council speak to this. Rather than this being aired out on the floor of council.
We've tried several venues to air this out, and so through discussion of my city services committee, I just thought that it would be appropriate to ask.
Given the importance of it though, I would suggest it be a request to the president of council for an assignment that there be a resolution of council on it. And you can vote up or down on that resolution. Otherwise, draft a letter, have all the council members you wish sign the letter requesting it. But debating this on council floor, I see it serves no purpose. I mean, if an elected city official does not do what you feel is appropriate to be done, the legal remedy is mandamus. I mean, you go from there down to a resolution, the next most formal method, and then below that is a letter, and right now you're at the lower stage, which is a request.
What I would like to do is ask the mayor to consider requesting a legal opinion from the Ohio Attorney General. That's all I want.
I know, and you've made that very clear. I'm not disagreeing with your position whatsoever.
Well,
I'm
I'm just saying, I'm not asking for a resolution. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I get an insufficient answer from the law director, I will ask you.
Thank you.
Are there other reports from the committees? Mr. Tapman?
Thank you, President Leonardo. The engineering committee had a meeting on April 14th. We discussed P-1515, which is vehicles parked in yards, and we sent that one through to the law director's office for her to get her 2 cents worth in, hopefully get it back through. Also, we discussed the assignment P-1505. This is pertaining to updating city sign ordinances. We decided that the ordinances are in fact adequate and that the only issue was enforcement. We also decided that one of the big issues was signs located on city right-of-way, and that includes the bench signs. This issue was addressed by the committee with a letter that I penned and everybody on the committee signed, requesting more information on the bench signs, their location, and also any kind of agreement that we have with this guy that has the bench signs. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tapman. Anything further? All right, that brings us to reports of officials. Mayor Everson?
Thank you, President Leonardo. I'd like to say thank you to Kathy Whalen of United Way and her organization for organizing the Day of Caring event last Thursday. Volunteers throughout the city did marvelous work cleaning and picking up and painting various signed areas in town, and the city is grateful for their effort and the public pride that it illustrated. I would like to bring up to council, and I will put this in the form of a council request, that the Design Review Board has reached their limit on budget with the last meeting that they had with the court reporter. As you know, their budget's only $500, and $200 of that budget is for postage rotary, which has to stay in that account. The balance of $300 is left is in various accounts that can be moved around through requests with the auditor. So if we are going to continue with the second hearing that requires a court reporter on the 18th of May, we're going to have to appropriate additional funds. So I'll get with President Ellis, who also serves as the chair of that committee, and we'll put a figure together as to what we're going to request. This morning we attended a ribbon cutting ceremony at Camp Sherman. It was for dedication for field maintenance shop number 9 at their facility, which is a new maintenance facility at the National Guard station out there. It was a good event and good progress, much needed facility out there. And one thing that most people don't realize is that the relationship between the National Guard base and city government is a close one, just as it is with the Sheriff's Department, just as it is with the city fire department and volunteer fire departments. These are the guys we call in case of natural disaster or terrorism or things like that. National Guard's called in. They do a marvelous job of organizing medical evac, medical treatment, manpower, boots on the ground for issues like earthquakes and tornadoes and terrorist threats. Every 4 years we do a practical exercise at Camp Sherman that facilitates a local disaster that happens, and how both our city squads and the county squads and sheriff's office respond to such an instance. In May of 2012, we had a reenactment of a building collapse at Plattfelder with a biohazard agent in the evidence of the event in their rubble pile out there. And it was very realistic, and Jeff Creed at the time was the event coordinator, did a marvelous job with that. And that was in association with all the local volunteer squads, the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, as well as the National Guard units. Adina was even in that scenario as well, with transportation to the hospital and reenactment of training exercises there. So my hat's off to the congratulations for that field shop opening up and the growth of the Camp Sherman, who's our neighbors to the east. And with regard to the council agenda tonight, I'd like to ask council's favorable vote on item number 2. We certainly know that the auditor's software package is most needed. Items 6 and 7, which pertain to the operation of the pool and the part-time employees for summer help. Grass is growing, we need to mow. And then finally, council's favorable vote on items 8 and 9 for the staffing pay. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Everson. Mr. Fee?
Thank you, President Leonardo. Just a few comments on tonight's items. I too would ask for your favorable vote on item number 2. Just as a reminder, that $123,000 is spread out over 3 years. The company SSI has approved a 3-year payment plan at no interest. And the first year payment is already included in this year's budget, so no additional appropriation is necessary at this time. We will be able to link, I should say, into the water department's server, and there may be hardware upgrade here and there necessary, but for the most part, this is a done deal in terms of final price. Again, this is something that the city has needed for a long time. It will affect not just the auditor's office, but the whole city because of payroll and purchasing. We were going through the process the other day, and just the process between getting a requisition, purchase order, it touches too many hands and takes just too long, and I think the efficiency that we'll get out of this will pay for itself very quickly. So I would ask for your favorable vote on item number 2. Item number 6 is, it doesn't look exciting, but I think it's kind of exciting. We have moved the pool to the recreation department, and the only reason that this money wasn't appropriated for the pool during the budget process was because that new department hadn't been created yet. But here we are in April. I would ask for your favorable vote on this, obviously, but I think that the move to recreation is going to take out some of the conversation that we've had over the pool for the past few years, make it a more stable thing, make it a part of the recreation budget. And so the money that's appropriated there is coming from unappropriated recreation. It has nothing to do with the general fund as it has in the past. And the revenue that flows back through will flow into recreation and be totally separate from the general fund. That includes donations, and that was one of the concerns the public had in the past, was that their donations would be lost in the fund, but the general fund. So I would ask for your favorable vote on item number 6, and with it, item number 7. And again, I think that the request was made for waiver of the 3-read rule, and I think that's also appropriate tonight so that the department heads can get to hiring their staff, advertising, that sort of thing. And short and sweet tonight, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. As sort of a president of council report, as I look forward into the May calendar, I see that our second meeting of the month falls on Memorial Day. And I'm wondering if any of the members would like to make a motion to move that meeting date to Tuesday the 26th. Do we need a formal vote on that? Is there a motion?
Motion to move to the 26th.
Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Gray. And a roll call on the motion, please.
Ames.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchen.
Yes.
So the meeting dates in May will be the 11th and now the 26th, which falls on a Tuesday. That brings us to audience participation this evening. And just a reminder that as you step to the microphone, please give your name and address. And council rule limits each speaker to 5 minutes and each subject to 15 minutes. So anyone who would like to address council this evening, please step forward.
Where's the microphone?
Just step to the podium.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Allen, and I live at 370 Braewood Drive in Chillicothe, Ohio. And I want to talk about the streets, but first I want to say, Luke, you're absolutely right. That is an exciting thing about the pool. The only other time I've addressed council was about 4 years ago when it was begging to keep the pool open for that year. So I think that is very, very exciting, and I thank all of you for that work, and so that we're at that point with the pool. I wanted to talk about the streets. I am very concerned about the streets in this city. I love this community. I want to help this community, and I'll help pay for streets in this community. But I have several questions about that. I'm aware that in 2003, from the time of 2003 on, we have not used the gasoline excise tax nor the licensed vehicle registration fee funds for any paving in our community. That was several years ago. And to my knowledge, that has not been looked at again. And I hear nothing about that as I read about the 5 things we needed to know about the streets. I didn't read anything in there about addressing those funds that come into the city, what they're used for, and is that a permanent decision that those funds will never be looked at to be used for paving and streets? I looked up the Ohio Revised Code on both of those and what they can be spent for, and I see in there that, I'm sorry, that's my medicine alarm going off. I should stop.
I understand, and the only answer that I have been able to find out is that that money is now all going for salaries. And as a former pediatrician and somewhat of a business person for many years, it doesn't make sense to me that you would take all the money from a project to pay for people to do that project, but you're not going to be able to do the project because you can't buy any of the supplies to do it. And that's just how it looks, a simplified version of it looks to me. And so I would like to know, is there a guarantee that this tax money that we're going to pay for now at some point in time won't be looked at by this council and said, well, now it says we can use it for streets, so we can use it to pay for the people who are going to take care of the streets. Is that going to happen to this tax money down the way? And are we going to go another 11 years with no paving, basically no paving, no planned repairs, nothing going on the streets in Chillicothe? If we do that, we're not going to be able to make progress on the streets. And it's not going to be helpful to just get the money from this tax levy. And I would really like to know when and if any of the monies from the gasoline tax revenue or the vehicle registration, which I have a little plan, and since 2004, the city has received a combined total, this is an estimate of $10.5 million in those funds. $2 million of that is estimated because I cannot find the actual numbers for the auto license. And I know the one for 2012, and then I kind of estimated it, decreasing it by $3,000 a year because it looks like the funds are always decreasing, to come out to that amount, and that would give us a total of $10.5 million that we have received under these taxes and revenues that clearly state they're to go for street, bridges, maintenance, repairs, widening roads, those kind of things. And this year so far, we have received a combined from those two things, $256,472. That's up through April. They distribute the money on the 25th of April. So that's how much money we've received this year so far. And I think that it's fair of taxpayers to say, is this going to go on, and what can we really expect from City Council from this tax levy?
So I have a couple answers for you, if this is appropriate time. And the concern that you pose, I think, is one that council actually addressed pretty well. When you look at the revised code section that you brought, it's actually a fairly lenient, or broad code section. It does say plan, construct, reconstruct, but then it's got words like repair, clear, clean. And so it also goes into traffic signs and markers and that sort of thing. So the language in the ordinance, in the ballot issue is actually much more specific. And I think the intent of council was to construct it in such a way that it could not be used for these other things like this can be used. And the other thing I wanted to add, and that I will be curious to look into, is I've heard this 2003 thing mentioned a couple times. I'm not sure what that is, but I do know that all of the money does not go to salaries right now. So over time, as recently as, say, 5 years ago, there was a significant amount of money transferred from the general fund into street construction. That has slowed down over time, but the money that's coming to street construction now, these revised code, gasoline tax and that sort of thing, some of it is going to pay debt that we've issued to do some of this work. Some of it goes to buy stuff like salt. And so it's certainly not, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the percentage are for salary, but it definitely is going to things other than salary. And I think my guess is as funds got cut and less went from the general fund, you were left with so little. But I think your broader question is how can we be sure, and I agree with you, I'm willing to invest as well. And I think that when you look at that levy language, it is much more specific than this. And the example that I gave before, given a couple times, is when you go to the park and you see brand new playground equipment, but we've got roads that aren't paved and we were laying off police and firefighters, the reason you can trust that the money in that levy will go to the streets is the same reason, you just look at that playground equipment. That levy says that money has to go to the playground, and so we've got capital that we have to spend in the park, even though some people would argue that the better use would be saving a firefighter's job or something like that. It's a similar construct in that it's the law, it's what the voters have asked for, and I think that will be how it'll guide us going forward. And in fact, without going back to the voters, there wouldn't be any way to adjust that. Similarly to, and I'll stop talking, when it went back to the voters to adjust the safety levy to allow half of it to go to, half of it from going to capital to avoid layoffs, that also went back to the voters. So, but I'd be happy to sit down with you and take more time.
But I could just say one more thing. I appreciate and understand what you're saying. To me, I don't think the state of Ohio gives all this money to municipalities, counties, and cities and thinks that none of it's going to be used for street repair or widening of the street. I don't care how broad it sounds in here, and I mean intent, how good is somebody's intent, I don't know. But I think that it is the intent of the state of Ohio to have its counties, municipalities, and townships be able to have safe roads for their citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Who would like to go next?
My name is John Stevens. I live at 522 Seminole Road. And I've got a little problem with this $118,850 being pulled out of the Parks Department for operation of the pool. The last 2 years, we've been told that they didn't have enough money in the Parks Fund to hire people to keep the park in a decent shape. I went to a meeting earlier this year with Mr. Tanner and the Parks and Rec Committee, and they had a big deal. They had a lot of money in the capital improvements budget, and they were going to get a new mower, a couple zero turns so they could work it properly. I just think that $118,000 going in to Operation Pool is just an end run to keep the Parks and Rec money down there for what it was not designed for. That pool has never been up the list last year under the Parks and Rec Department. That was city. And it's just a dodge to keep from putting the general fund money into the pool. And they're going to steal it from the Parks Department. And we have a dedicated levy for that, and I'd like to see it used for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
My name is Terry Williams. I reside at 371 Flyleys Lane. I'm a proud resident and worker in the First Ward. I walked down to Sherry Rutherford's office today and received this invoice, a copy of the Hauser & Son invoice that Ms. Neal mentioned before. This invoice asking the city to pay $2,782.70 for transporting all of this equipment all the way up 159 to Mr. Hauser's business, and for doing some work on these items, particularly power washing, installing a starter and a solenoid, changing out some brake fluid. They've listed on here that they're not charging us as of the date of this invoice for storage, which is the 17th of April. Maybe we should check and see if they've charged us since then for storage, or what their plan is there. And they have hourly rates for some of their employees ranging from $10 all the way up to $46.50 for one of their employees at an hourly rate. I'm really kind of upset about this, primarily because this whole situation has come about because we didn't follow procedure. Now, I'm not interested in blaming anybody in particular for this either. I know Mr. Trutchell's going to try to take the blame for Mr. Tenner and the mayor. There's plenty of blame to go around in this place. Ultimately, whoever you decide to blame for this, we now have a situation where there has been work done, particularly transporting this equipment and doing work on this equipment, work done on city property, of city property, things done to city property, not by city employees. I think that's entirely unfair to expect that this work, regardless of why it was done, regardless of how people went about it, this work was entered into without a contract. There was no promise to pay individuals in regard to this that we're aware of. The mayor even went on public radio, WBEX, on the 14th, and made a statement that Hauser, Mr. Hauser himself, had asked to have this equipment taken to his place. The quote from that radio interview is, and I quote, "Hauser wanted the equipment out there to evaluate. They came and picked it up and took it out there." So Mr. Hauser took this equipment at his own request up to his facility by the mayor's admission, and now Mr. Hauser wants us to pay for a service he rendered to himself, which seems pretty ridiculous. There are union employees down here in the service department who would have loved to do that work. And for $46.50 an hour, my goodness, I'd love to do that work, quite frankly. Let me know when you need a part-time laborer for $46.50 an hour. It's pretty ridiculous to me that we're sitting here talking about legal opinions when we have a legal opinion dated March 30th, not a month ago, from Chair Rutherford's office, that says very clearly, because the total value of these obsolete goods, this says, because the total value of the obsolete goods exceeds $1,000 used for trade-in, it appears that public auction, according to 721.15b in the Ohio Revised Code, is the appropriate way to proceed, as long as you can observe that the equipment meets certain standards. I don't see why in the world we're still sitting around here debating this, aside from the fact that we don't want to rectify this mistake. Either we had some kind of an agreement with Mr. Hauser that we were going to sell property that we didn't have the right to sell because it needs to be auctioned, and that's why he came and got the material, or Mr. Hauser came and got material that we didn't ask him to come and get, and we still haven't gotten it back. Now, I, for one, don't believe that Mr. Hauser's a thief, but I do believe that we need to figure out how to get this property back in the city, and how to not look like we're doing a lot of really shady stuff in front of the public taxpayer. Right now, we're trying to pass a couple of levies. I'm working hard to try to pass those levies because I know we need it. I drive through the potholes every day like you do. But right now, to be honest, Mr. Mayor, confidence in you and confidence in this administration is not just shaken, it's through the floor. It makes absolutely no sense why we are going to even entertain the idea of paying an outside business person for doing union labor. Union labor that's been bargained for, that's covered under a contract, that is typically awarded to union laborers, possibly even at overtime cost. And how we clean that up, I'll never know. So blame whoever you like, but the reality is, at the end of the day, labor has been done. There's property outside the city that needs labor done on it to bring it back to the city. And we need to figure out exactly how we can get out of this mess with the lowest price tag possible while following the law. I hope you as council members don't approve a single dime paid out to Mr. Hauser, because Mr. Hauser entered into this whole agreement, according to the mayor, of his own accord and for his own benefit. Not for a service to the city, not with a purchase order, not with a contract, but simply because he wanted to better evaluate this material. Please do not pay Mr. Hauser. Please do not pay anybody except union laborers for doing union labor. It not only looks really bad, it flat stinks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Anyone else?
William Barnhart, 373 McCallar. I see we still have the meetings here, so I'll just throw this out. Any member of council that can tell me how it's cost efficient just to have council meetings here and nowhere else.
Mr. Barnhart, where would you have us have these meetings?
Transit.
Transit does not have a facility big enough to house this many people.
Oh,
There's not a,
you're kidding me. I've been to meetings where there's been more people at, when they've had, meetings there at the transit.
And
I
as a
can't
point
believe
of
it.
reference,
And you mean, this is the only thing that happens in this building and you think that's justified?
It's not what the way we want to do it. We originally thought that we'd be sharing facilities with the new courthouse. And then when they ruled that not an option for us, we were left with this building.
I
whether
still
we like
think
it or
it's a
not.
waste of money, in my opinion. And also, in my opinion, I don't see how the design and review board has anything to say what happens to Smith. They should have tore Smith down years ago, in my opinion, and it would have saved taxpayers money. And another thing I want to bring up is, in the near future, I think city council ought to really see what it costs the city to have the garbage picked up. Because city workers are pricing themselves out of a job. I believe that Rumpke, Waste Management, even Stevens can probably give us a better deal. But this council, or the next council, some of you won't be here after elections, but I can't believe that we can't get a better deal on having garbage picked up than having city workers and stuff do it.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. Anyone else this evening? All right, seeing none, then we'll move on.
We have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please
I'm
step
sorry.
forward, I didn't see you.
Maxine Ryan, I live on North Church Street, and I'm very much for the levy to improve the streets. I used to say that if the snow came, you didn't have to worry about it. Where the mayor lived, the snow would be shoveled. I have to stand here today and tell you that where the mayor lives is the worst street for potholes in Chillicothe. So he does not have that much influence on the repair people.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else? All right, we'll close that portion of our agenda and we'll move on. Is there any old business to be discussed this evening? Mr. Trutchell.
I have a small thing to throw in regarding gasoline tax. The city of the Ross County, that the gasoline taxes collected in this county is more than we get back for our streets in the state, and that's a fact. Just so everybody knows that when we get money back from the state, it's already our money and we're not getting much of it back. And that's been a fact for years, it didn't just happen. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Patrick.
Thank you. I just want to remind residents that we still have one more large item drop-off, and it's this Saturday from 9 to 4, and it's at the Renegade Yard Waste site. And also, the mayor mentioned the Day of Caring. Well, I want to commend the National Arts Society students for the nice mural they did underneath the Main Street overpass. I understand some people don't drive under the Main Street overpass, but you need to go see it. They did a very nice job, and it just brightens that up.
Thank you, Mrs. Patrick. Other old business, Mrs. Ames.
Yes, thank you, President Leonardo. I too want to say thank you to all the different groups that did projects throughout the city. There were a lot of things done with cleanups of shelters and the bike path and different groups. They had over 200 people participate in 32 projects throughout the city, so that was really nice of them to do that. I also want to address the item number 2 tonight and say that I am very much in favor of this. I sat in with Mr. Feeney when SSI did their presentation, and the software is amazing. It's what it can do and help us out is just amazing. And we already have implemented SSI with the utilities department, and that's going very well. So I think this is a good step for the city, and we have talked about getting new software for the auditors department for I don't know how many years, and we're just so lucky that it hasn't crashed before this time. So I'm definitely in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ames. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to petitions and correspondence received by the clerk.
Madam President, I have nothing to report on tonight.
Thank you. Is there new business? Seeing none, do we have committee assignments or meeting dates other than what we mentioned earlier in the evening? All right, that brings us to legislation. Item number 1 was struck from the agenda, so that brings us to item number 2.
Third reading of an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to enter into a 3-year purchase agreement and professional services contract with Software Solutions Incorporated for the purchase of new software at a cost of $123,573 and declaring an emergency. Third reading.
Roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
The ordinance has passed. Item number 3.
Second reading of an ordinance appropriating $18,500 for sewer department postage for the remainder of 2015 and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Item number 4.
Second reading of an ordinance appropriating $27,133.84 to reimburse the Utilities Department for services provided to the Transit Department and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Item number 5.
Second reading of an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Chillicothe codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Mrs. Ames.
I move to waive the 3-read rule for this.
Second by Mr. Trutchell. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
3-read rule has been waived. Roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
And that's carried. Item number 6.
First reading of an ordinance appropriating $118,850 for the operation of the Donald M. Smith Memorial Pool for the 2015 season and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Would I move to remove the 3-read rule here?
Motion has been made to waive the 3-read. Is there a second? Mrs. Gray. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
3-read rule has been waived. Roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Ordinance has passed. Item number 7.
First reading of an ordinance establishing the salary schedule for part-time seasonal employees of the Recreation Swimming Pool Department of the City of Chillicothe and declaring emergency. First reading.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the 3-read rule.
Is there a second? Mrs. Patrick. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
3-read rule has been waived. Roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Ordinance has passed. Item number 8.
First reading of an ordinance establishing rates of pay and other economic benefits for non-classified employees and the classified but management level employees of the City of Chillicothe, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Mrs. Gray.
Thank you. President Leonardo, I would like to ask to waive the 3-read rule this time.
Is there a second? Mrs. Ames. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran.
Yes.
Florina.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Tatman,
Yes.
Trutville,
Yes.
Three read rule has been waived. Roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran,
Yes.
Florina,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Tatman,
Yes.
Trutville.
Yes.
Ordinance has passed. Item number 9.
First reading of an ordinance establishing rates of pay and other economic benefits for all appointed department head positions within the city of Chillicothe, Ohio, effective January 1, 2015 through December 31, 2015, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Mrs. Gray,
I would like to request the hearing will be waived at this time.
is there a second? Mr. Florina. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3 read rule.
Ames.
Yes?
Corcoran,
Yes.
Florina,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Neal,
No.
Patrick,
No.
Kroll,
No.
Tatman,
No.
Trutville.
Yes.
Pass 5-4.
Passed? Okay, so the motion to waive 3 read has passed.
I'm sorry, it did not pass.
Did not pass.
I
Okay,
was thinking of the ordinance.
all right. So we will not go forward with this ordinance this evening.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, one, before, after Utilities Wednesday, I have a short community affairs meeting, very short.
And that's after the utilities meeting on Wednesday the 29th.
Yes,
And what committee, when is it on?
community affairs.
Community affairs.
I'm sorry, I blanked for a second. And I'll.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Neal. Roll call on the motion.
Ames.
Yeah.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Florina,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Tatman,
Yes.
Trutville.
We are adjourned.